All right, welcome to another episode of the Greenleaf Governor Series. Today, we're very excited to have Mike Thurmond with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come chat with us.
Oh, absolutely.
So you kind of kicked off your campaign for governor. We have the election coming up any day now. And it was more on like a boots on the ground theme that you're talking about. And you kind of position yourself as the turnaround guy for kind of state and local politics. Right?
I've had a fortunate career in local government. Most recently, I served as CEO of DeKalb County for the last 8 years. And I was the elected chief executive officer of DeKalb County. We have approximately 800,000 residents in DeKalb. And prior to that, I was the superintendent of the DeKalb County School District. 100,000 students, 13,000 employees.
So what was it like as the CEO of the county? How does that position you into a statewide technically CEO role?
Well, the CEO's job, the county executive's job is interesting. It's not like most political positions that might focus more on kissing babies and cutting ribbons. The CEO of the DeKalb actually runs the county. It's actually a job, and you have to show up to make sure the garbage is picked up and the traffic lights are working and the sewage stay inside the pipes. All of those things that happen every day, but are so critical to having a positive quality of life for all of our residents.
Yeah. When you were in that role, how did you handle the budgetary process of that and make sure it stayed within constraints and don't spend too much? How did you manage that part of it?
Well, that was one of the challenges I faced, because when I was elected, DeKalb had been suffering with a structural deficit. When I came in office in January 2017, we had a $27 million structural deficit. And look, having sound fiscal policy, I think, is a threshold issue that you have to overcome. Taxpayers, voters expect that. So when I left, we had transformed that $27 million deficit into a $140 million surplus and made critical investments in infrastructure and quality of life issues such as parks, libraries, senior centers, and so on.
What were the main points of, that's a huge difference. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What were the main points of, like, did you bring in more income? Did you cut expenses? Or was it a balance of both? Like, how did you, that's a huge transformation of budget.
Well, you have to create synergy and have integrated systems. Oftentimes, local governments, like public and private institutions, become siloed, where you have different departments, but not necessarily coordinated effort. We looked very closely at the budget, looked at things we were doing that we didn't need to do, and redirected those dollars into initiatives and programs that could generate additional benefit for our voters and our citizens. Just being a good steward of the resources that we had, we were able to invest in infrastructure. That was the biggest thing we had to do. Our infrastructure and local governments all across this country, really all across the world, one of the things that becomes neglected is the infrastructure. We look at, particularly if you look at development, people look at the shiny new skyscrapers or developments that are being built. Unless you have functioning, up-to-date infrastructure, none of that happens. And so we had to get back to the basics and invest. We invested $1.2 billion in our infrastructure, $700 million in the sewer system, $500 million in the water distribution system.
Yeah, something on the real estate side, we are always dealing with certainly plumbing and water issues and it's kind of the county level stuff. Sometimes it's city level stuff, but it's like that's one of probably the weakest points of American infrastructure is distributing and then recollecting wastewater.
Absolutely. Look, and unfortunately in politics, out of sight, out of mind, unless you turn your faucet on and the water shows up, or you go to flush and you can't. So that's why it's so critical. And frankly, there's no opportunity to develop. A large part of DeKalb County was at risk of facing a moratorium on development because the system had become so deteriorated that we could not authorize and approve new economic development projects. You couldn't connect. And that's why we had to make an investment, frankly, that secured the future of DeKalb County.
And we've seen other states like Texas has it where you can do private sewer developments, water developments. When you did this in DeKalb, was it all public led, or was there private public partnerships, or how did you get that stuff?
Yeah, so
done?
we created a opportunity for businesses to invest in paying for some of the infrastructure in order to bring a new project online. So it was both. It was a combination of public and private, and it was very helpful. One of our largest economic development projects is the Assembly. It was an old General Motors manufacturing plant in the northern end of DeKalb County that had been sitting abandoned for more than 20 years. Now it's one of the largest film and movie production sites in the United States of America. It's called the Assembly. We invested over $190 million in infrastructure, and Gray Communications, a gentleman by the name of Hilton Howard, the president and CEO, they have transformed that site into the largest film and movie production site in the Southeast United States, and maybe even in the United States.
Yeah, that's impressive. So the county came in basically like get all the infrastructure in place so something could happen there. Or else
absolutely.
there would be nothing there.
We did the same thing. The first enclosed mall in Metro Atlanta was the old North DeKalb Mall. And you know how enclosed malls, the future there is not bright. And this mall had been deteriorating with fewer and fewer tenants over the last 2 decades. We were able to work with Edens, and they have now demolished that mall, and a new multi-use private, single and multifamily residential units as well as commercial is literally rising out of the ground as we speak. They were able to take that site and now are transforming it into something that's not going to just generate jobs and a better quality of life, but it's going to be a huge economic engine for Central DeKalb County, Georgia.
That's interesting. You're two huge kind of components of America are malls and what happens to them, or abandoned industrial sites, and like how do you turn them into something. So you've got two here that you've done just in DeKalb County that are substantial even throughout the state. That's big.
Absolutely. And there are others that we have invested in, brownfields that had to be reduced, remove the contamination, and then transform them into something very special.
So that just goes back to your turnaround strategy. What do you think of state of Georgia? Where are there other opportunities that we need to turn things around? And anytime we can go from a budget deficit to a surplus, like that's a good idea. I think people are for that. But what other opportunities are there to turn stuff around in Georgia?
We're proud that Georgia has been ranked number 1 in the nation in terms of business relocation for the last 12 years. It's the number 1 ranked state in the nation for businesses seeking to relocate. That's a positive thing. I'm running for governor of Georgia, and I'm going to fight to maintain our number 1 ranking. However, if we look beyond just the business climate, we are struggling in some quality of life areas, such as having access to affordable health care. We're near the bottom in terms of maternal and infant mortality. We need to do a better job in terms of making sure that the jobs we bring add to per capita income for men and women who are working. Look, we can be number 1 in business, which we are, and I believe we can be, but a good investment also creates economic opportunity and good jobs for the men and women who work as a result of those relocations.
Yeah, we see people, if they're going to move a company to Georgia, obviously they want their people to come with them and have a better quality of life than wherever they're moving from coming to Georgia. So how do we do some of those things? How do we make our, infant mortality is one of those parts. So how do we make healthcare just more affordable? What can the state do to really change that?
Recognizing that although it doesn't show up on the balance sheet, but the most valuable, and I hate to use the term asset of any business, are the employees. It's not the buildings, it's not the capital investment, it's the men and women who do the work that produce the widgets and the products that are sold. And a healthy workforce, a well-trained, educated workforce is a more productive workforce. A more productive workforce is a more profitable workforce, and a more profitable workforce generates more dividends for investors. It's that loop that you create, that virtuous loop that you create to make sure that everyone can profit. And you have to have that vision. I call it enlightened self-interest. We're all self-interested, as we should be. in business. I've been a small business owner throughout my adult career, but I want to make profit at my business. But enlightened self-interest helps me to understand that my employees have to profit and do well in order for me to do well. And that's what we have to do. We must continue to invest in education. I think all of our children in the public and private system should have access to a quality education. Young people are 20% of the population, but they represent 100% of our future. But as we speak, as I sit here talking to you gentlemen today, 90% of the children who are being educated in Georgia are being educated in our public school system. So we have to see that regardless of where our children are matriculating, we have to see investing in education is an investment in our future.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you spent a lot of time in the school system as well. Right?
Absolutely. I'm the former superintendent. Prior to becoming the CEO, I served as superintendent of the DeKalb School District. As I mentioned, 100,000 students, 13,000 employees, $1.6 billion budget.
Yeah. At the state level, Georgia's, I feel like it's unique. We're a big fan of Georgia, but that it has a very robust trade school program that people can go through instead of necessarily having to go to college. Maybe college isn't the path you want to take, but we have a very good trade school program here that's putting out a lot of talented kids.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're talking to the former labor commissioner for the state. They're like, this guy had a lot of jobs, right? I know that's what you're thinking. It's hard for some people to keep a good job, but no, that's not me. I served for 12 years as the elected labor commissioner for the state of Georgia, and we have now reached a point in the history of this nation, particularly as it relates to our economy, where skills are equally as important as degrees. To the point as it relates to technical education. And one of my favorite sayings over the years was, we get caught up in the color of the collar. It's a white collar job, it's a blue collar job, but this is how I see it. White collar, blue collar, no collar. It's not the color of the collar, but it's the green in the dollar that makes the difference. And that's why technical colleges are so important. And it's not an either or proposition. We have many Georgians now who have technical degrees as well as liberal arts degrees. And you can leverage both in this economy and do quite well. And one thing I want parents and students to know that it's just as significant and important, and it should be celebrated when you get accepted and graduate in Georgia Tech. But it's just as important to enroll at DeKalb Tech or Atlanta Tech, because both of those career paths can lead to a rewarding and lucrative career.
Yeah. Do you see our trade school expanding if you're governor?
Well, absolutely. Yes. One of the things I want to do is to invest in making sure that we're creating the most AI proficient workforce on the planet. Because right now, many years ago, we were competing with states up north or maybe the Sun Belt states in Texas and so forth for jobs. But right now, it's international competition. And we're not just competing with other human beings, we're competing against machines. And AI is totally changing the workforce and the career path for tens of millions of Americans. What I'm going to do is set up a tuition-free AI proficient course where you can get a certificate, no matter your age or educational attainment, so that we can prepare the incumbent workforce, but also look at our K through 12 and college curriculum to make sure we're creating and preparing our young people and our citizens to be able to compete in a world that we can't even imagine is going to be dominated by artificial intelligence.
So what are your beliefs? You have a ton of background in labor on the state level. If you're thinking about AI, there's a lot of kind of doomsday theories of labor displacement. We personally see it as being just this incredible opportunity to evolve in kind of the next workforce. What's your take on, where AI is going to take the state or take the people of Georgia?
Well, it depends on how we respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
If we fail to prepare the workforce, if we fail to embrace this technology, it could be devastating. Look, I was a labor commissioner doing after NAFTA, and I was there when the plant shut down at General Motors the Ford plant and textile and manufacturing plants all across Georgia. As a labor commissioner, after those announcements would be made, I'm the guy that would show up and try to talk to the laid off workers about future opportunities, going to technical college or unemployment insurance benefits. And I remember to this day the look of hurt and pain and confusion. And frankly, the look of betrayal on the face of those men and women. Some of them have been working in these jobs through generations. And it's not a political statement, but in those meetings, now that I look back on it, I witnessed the birth of Trumpism. So when President Trump now campaigns on bringing jobs back to America, and Americans embraced that because they felt they were abandoned and mistreated 20 years ago, I get it because I saw it happening. And when we embraced internationalism and free trade, we didn't do enough to protect the men and women who were impacted by it. We just didn't. It was just wrong and a big mistake. So here we are now in 2026 going forward. Now that AI is presenting itself, we have to invest in the workforce to protect it. Because rather than being victimized by AI, we need to leverage it and utilize it to create new jobs, new opportunities, and to create a better society for all the folks and not have as many victims as we did with the free trade.
It's a great perspective.
Yeah. How do you get in front of that with the state? What resources can the state provide to do that? Or should the state provide resources to train and educate people on AI?
Well, education is about half of our $40 billion budget. So the state is the primary provider of public education in Georgia. K through 12, college, technical school, we're there. And so what we have to do is embrace the moment and not fear it, but embrace it. And, in life, if you ever had challenges and you were afraid to embrace or take on, it could be professional or personal. And one day you say, all right, this is it. I'm going forward. I'm going to look at this in a different way. The state has to do it. We can't wait. This evolution is taking place so fast. And one of the things I say out on the campaign trail, particularly when you're talking to middle-aged and older people, AI. Look, if you've ever used GPS on your car to get from A to B, that's low-level artificial intelligence. I call Delta. You call Delta to make a reservation. Typically now you're talking to an AI attendant, aren't we? So It's here. It's here. I had the unfortunate experience of the AI attendant started arguing with me one day.
That's good.
But I'll say that for the next episode. You know what I mean?
You mentioned challenges. I've got a now 13-year-old girl. It's like, should I get her a cell phone? To my daughter, like, I don't think so. But when is she going to learn about AI at the school level? It's like, so if Georgia, educating as a state, educating the majority of our kids through public education system, at what point does AI training and even awareness come into the fold in the education system?
And that's evolving because initially there was this pushback from the academic world, the kids using AI to
cheat on a test or something.
Yeah,
right?
Or they call it cheating or to write a term paper or whatever. But it's a tool. And now you're seeing some evolution in that in colleges and universities and even in K through 12. It's a tool. You shouldn't allow it to write the paper, but you have to learn how to ask the appropriate question to get the most accurate information. And then you got to triple check the information generated by AI and not assume that it's always accurate. But it's evolving, and that's the point. The only thing that's constant is change. And so change is occurring at rapid pace. And you look at Meta and some of the other technology firms laying out thousands of workers, replacing them with AI. And government is going to have to think through this as well.
So it's funny. Every morning, I have 4 boys. My younger 2, 6 and 7 years old, and they're constantly yelling at Alexa.
Yeah.
And they yell at Alexa not because Alexa doesn't understand them as well. And I'm sitting there listening. I'm like, just say please and thank you. Like you don't do that for an AI bot. Like it actually delays it. But I'm like, just say please and thank you because they're going to translate that conversation with Alexa to an adult or another person. And like, if have a conversation and practice the conversation.
So how do they use AI? How do they tell me
they want to know what the sports scores were last night because they went to bed before the game's finished. They want to know what the weather is today, what they should wear in the morning. They want to know what the weather is for next.
They want to know what day it is.
They want to know
what day is it.
The most common question a 6 and 7-year-old asks Alexa, "How many days until my birthday?" It's a daily question. One just had a birthday like a couple weeks ago. It's a daily question.
That's amazing.
How many days left until my next birthday? I'm just getting older by the day here.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So that's real time, right?
Yeah.
It's real time. So what will that be? What will Alexa be like in 5 years?
Yeah, hopefully better.
Yeah,
She
and
doesn't look
around
very
that, yeah. And riding around Atlanta, you see the Waymo vehicles.
Yeah.
Now I still notice, but it's becoming less and less noticeable.
Yeah, exactly.
Just manual.
I drove to Raleigh and back yesterday.
Okay.
It was a hell of a drive. I didn't touch the steering wheel once.
Really?
Full self-driving. Just I even going to a gas station, I didn't touch the steering wheel.
Well, it's because you didn't even go to a gas
Oh, I
station.
didn't go. Yes, I was.
If you went to the gas station, you're like, where does it
Atlanta
go?
to Raleigh, you never touch the steering.
Didn't touch the steering wheel once. I'm calling him all the time, like, dude, this is awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
And look, just a matter of time, the Amazon trucks and the 16-wheelers, there will not be a driver.
Right.
That's the challenge, but also the opportunity. It's coming. It's already here. If you can drive to Raleigh and never touch it, at some point you'll just be in the back seat.
Right. Exactly.
What do you? So I mean, along with AI comes kind of the. I feel like the boogeyman is the AI data center, where people are like, oh my gosh, where do we go with that as a state? How do we? We need them for it all to function, but some people want it, some people don't want it. Where do we go with that as a state?
The responsibility and the decision whether or not to be a data center in any location, city or county, it's up to city council and county commissioners, land use, planning and zoning. They make that decision. The role for the state of Georgia is one that looks at this entire landscape and says, look, number one, ratepayers should not disproportionately bear the burden in the maintenance or improvement of the infrastructure. That should be shared primarily or shouldered primarily by those people who own and operate those data centers. Number one, that's just fair. If you're going to generate billions of dollars in profit, who should share in improving and upgrading the infrastructure? Number two, we have to protect the natural resources. These data centers consume large amounts of fresh water. So we need to make sure that these centers are using closed loop water systems so that we can be protective of our natural resources, particularly water. But I've already talked about number three. We can't allow our workers to become the victims of the technology. You have to invest in upskilling and reskilling the workforce so that we can help this technology be a benefit and not a curse. Look, much of the pushback, although it's not stated, I believe that a significant portion of the pushback against those data centers, people concerned about their jobs. There is a connection from people who are concerned or threatened by the technology. Look at Hyundai down in Bryan County near Savannah. It's a huge plant. I don't know whether you've seen it, all by 16.
That's
huge.
Massive.
And we celebrated the fact that we'll create 8,000 jobs. And Georgia's invested tens of millions of dollars in incentives to have the plant locate here in South Korea. And that's all a good thing. But about 3 months ago, Hyundai announced that they are building an army of 30,000 robots that will fill a significant number of the jobs in that plant. To me, Georgia has to step up and make sure that obviously we can't compete with the machines, but we ought to be the people who are maintaining those machines. We ought to be the technicians who are ensuring that the machines are operating appropriately. That's what needs to happen. But if the machine just displays Georgians who now don't have jobs, I don't think that's a good deal for us.
Yeah, that goes back to exactly what you said you saw early on in your career.
I've seen all this before.
Yeah.
I've seen it in your eyes. And And these were men. And frankly, they were primarily many of them white men, middle age, had played by the rules, worked hard, done everything. Many of them, not college educated, but good, solid, middle class, salt of the earth, men who do the right thing. And it was like America betrayed them.
Yeah, so it sounds like you can see a little bit of that. It sounds like you're seeing that or feeling that.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, and that's got to be prepared to handle it.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And still to this day, the federal government has not made any major investments in protecting people who may be displaced by the technology. Not even a discussion point.
Yeah, that's a good viewpoint of it. So another question here. One of the things that you said you're going to do as governor is declare basically affordability crisis on day one, right? And housing, I don't think anyone in Georgia is thinking that, man, housing costs have gone down over the past 10 years. That definitely doesn't seem like it's the case. What does, you as governor, what do we do with the housing affordability crisis, and how can we turn it around the other direction?
Affordability is the number one issue. Republicans and Democrats, independents, everyone understands it. We've had since 2020 this elevated levels of inflation. And on top of that, now you've had the president with his tariff regime, and on top of that, increasing gasoline prices. Average everyday Georgians, Americans are struggling. People working 2 and 3 jobs and yet can't purchase groceries or insurance or pay the rent or mortgage. That's not, it seems like a betrayal of the American dream, because we all believe, we were taught by our parents that if you just work hard, play by the rules, keep your nose clean, your life can be better than the life your parents lived. But for so many Georgians, hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans, that's not true anymore. So the basic fundamental cornerstone of the American dream is home ownership. People want to own a home, but houses are now been priced out. Many young people and middle-aged individuals, I read an article in the New York Times, can't afford to purchase a home anymore. It's out of reach. And so as the governor of Georgia, what can I do? Number one, on the housing front, I'm going to invest heavily in a shared equity fund to help moderate, low-income buyers secure a mortgage and help them be able to purchase that first home. Because home ownership, there's some pride in it, obviously, but it's also wealth generation. That's basically how we generate is generational wealth. Many Americans, what they inherit is a home or real estate from a parent or a relative. So a shared equity fund to support first-time, low and moderate income homeowners, buyers, to make that first step, purchase that first home. Secondly, with renters, it's cost of rent. It's just not mortgages, it's also renters. And so we will have, in DeKalb, I created an emergency rental assistance program. Over 4 years, we distributed $55 million to renters who found themselves facing eviction. And it was paid directly to the landlord, by the way. So it helped landlords because landlords all of a sudden had thousands of people in arrears, which creates pressure for them, if not chaos. So those are 2 things I would do immediately. The shared equity fund, create a statewide rental assistance program. So if a person has an accident or becomes ill, lose a job, they don't end up homeless. The best way to prevent or mitigate homeless is to keep people in the houses and apartments that they have now.
Yeah, I think you hear nationally a lot of effort going into like how do you solve homelessness and an exorbitant amount of money spent on it, but none of it's really preventative.
It's really not. It's reactive. And one of the things about government that I try to, just my philosophy of government, is to invest upstream. We don't like to invest upstream. We're spending the money. But if you invest upstream, you could have a much more positive impact. Just public education is an upstream investment. Young men and women who graduate from high school have a much less chance of being involved in criminal activity or needing support from the state. So invest upstream and you save money downstream.
Seems very logical. So, so other question here. You, at DeKalb, you created a budget surplus. And then one of your talk points too, the policy positions, you want to be able to reduce the state sales tax. So how does reducing taxes and increasing budget surpluses coincide?
I love that.
It's like,
Great question. Well, and not only did we create the budget surplus of $140 million, we also provided homeowners, ad valorem taxpayers, with a $1.5 billion worth of tax relief over a 10-year period. So we have some of the lowest ad valorem taxes in the state, if not in the country. And it will generate it is generating $1.5 billion in tax relief. But we also increased the starting minimum wage from $10.32 an hour to $17.67 an hour. What I'm saying is, being fiscally responsible is not mutually exclusive from providing the services and the support that your citizens need. You can actually do both. You don't have to choose. Now, what I'm talking about at the state level, and by the way, we use the penny sales tax that we use to offset the ad valorem tax liability. It was not a tax increase. We just redirected a penny of the sales tax to provide a credit to ad valorem taxpayers in DeKalb County. And as far as real estate agents, that's one of the best selling points you can have. If you have a home in DeKalb as opposed to Atlanta, and say it's a $600,000 home, this person is saving $8,000 to $10,000 a year in ad valorem taxes if you buy on this side of this county line as opposed to that one. But the sales tax, when you don't address the regressivity of it, is the most punitive tax of all, particularly for middle and low income people. So what I'm going to do is reduce the regressivity of that tax for working class Georgians. We need to do it because we're in a crisis, and the best way to help people is to allow people to keep more of the money that they have. You know, a sales tax is like a little pickpocket that follow you around.
yeah, that's a
right? You at the grocery store.
Just a little here and there.
Yeah, just a little here and there. You know, a little here and there, and you don't really miss it till, wait a minute. You know, I got $50 left. It's a sales tax. It's a little pickpocket.
So questions are going to come from that of just like, how are you going to replace that revenue, or how are you going to save the expense to manage that that cut? Because it's a big chunk of Georgia's revenue.
Absolutely.
And some of the other candidates are talking about reducing or removing the state income tax to be more competitive, like a state like Tennessee or Texas. How do you see the two of those kind of playing, or that you're attacking sales tax instead of income tax, or one or the other?
Great question. Thank you. Well, the income tax is a progressive tax. So what is being proposed or was being proposed to eliminate it, that didn't make it through the legislature. What it really would have resulted in was a transfer of wealth from low and moderate income, middle class Georgians to upper income, right? So the tax cuts that were being proposed would have primarily benefited people on the top end of the income scale. And then the second part of that, it was that you were going to increase the amount that people pay in sales tax. So you would have shifted the burden to the people who can afford it the least, because people on the bottom have less disposable income. And in order to really do this right, you have to look at the entire taxing system. It's not just the income tax, not just the property tax, not just the sales tax, but it also excise taxes. And you got to look at your entire taxing system to come up with one that's balanced, and so that people will pay their fair share, but not shoulder an unfair burden. And so what I'm trying to do is create a little bit more fairness in our taxing system by helping people who really are being hit hard by the sales tax.
But how do we make up for the revenue loss?
Well, you do it over time. One of the strategies that's already in place now with the state income tax is being reduced over a period of time depending on economic conditions of the state. It's a gradual reduction. If you can do it with the state income tax, can't you do it with the sales tax?
We just got to get everyone to operate more efficiently.
Yeah,
They go at a state level.
at a state level. Or you can create tax credits and it won't cost as much. One of the reasons the state income tax and a reduction in the sales tax would be so expensive is that the great majority of the relief go to people who don't really need it. So with a sales tax, you can, through your income tax, create a credit, say that for people who make $75,000 or less, you get a credit on the income tax. Then you're not giving the credit to people who are making $10 million. They don't need it and they don't miss it. So, but the disproportionate amount of that relief will flow up, where if you use a tax credit and use your state income tax system, you can target the relief to people who have benefited from it the most.
How quickly can something like that happen at a state government level?
Well, it depends on whether or not y'all elect me as governor of the state of Georgia. No, that'll be agenda item number one for me. And I believe that we can build a coalition of people. Look, everybody's talking about affordability. The best way to help people who are struggling to purchase groceries or buy a haircut or whatever it is to reduce the cost of it. It makes sense, right? If you want to help a person trying to get to work, reduce the cost of a gallon of gas.
So we watched your campaign launch video.
That was fantastic.
Love the song. Like it was very exciting, very engaging. Boots on Georgia ground.
Boots on Georgia.
So did you come up with this? Did you write the lyrics to the song?
Yes.
Oh, did you really?
You're the first person to ask me that.
Really? It was really great.
This is the first interview I've had of scores of interviews when someone said, well, who actually wrote the song?
Yeah.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you sing it? Like, did you have an idea for the beat and all that? Or you?
Well, there was this song. It's a very popular song. And it was a line dance called Boots on the Ground. And so I changed it to Boots on Georgia Ground. And I kind of riffed on it a little bit from that song. Yeah. It was a very popular line dance.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I like it. That's great.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. You all made my day.
Yeah, who sang it?
Lady.
Yeah.
Sung it. And I had a producer, Michael Anthony, over in Athens. I have to give him credit. He produced it.
Yeah.
I didn't produce it.
Right.
I just came up with the lyrics.
A great beat, great lyrics, like and great video. Yeah. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Well, one other follow-up here. I think Georgia is a very unique state. We have Atlanta, where roughly half the population is, and the other half of the state that's more rural. I mean, we have Savannah as a large city as well, but we have a lot of rural Georgia that is a huge part of the state and a huge part of our economy. That is a balance between that and Atlanta. What, as governor, what do you do for the rural segment of Georgia that's predominantly farming? There used to be some manufacturing out there. That kind of a lot of that left. Then how do we make sure that they feel like Georgia is winning and Georgia is the best state to be in?
I was born and raised in rural Georgia. My dad was a farmer. I grew up on a farm, and I have a great love and affection for rural Georgia and understanding the challenges that we face. Look, Georgia can't be great unless rural Georgia is thriving. We can't have a great metropolitan Atlanta and not be impacted if we abandon rural Georgia, that Georgia that's outside of 285. So I will make certain, and I promise this, and I mean it, rural Georgia will have a seat at the table in the Thurmond administration. I promise you that. It's who I am. It's the place I love. And look, it shouldn't matter what a child's zip code is, whether or not he or she has access to a quality education. A child born in rural Georgia ought to have just as much access to a quality education as a child born right here in Gwinnett County or DeKalb County. It shouldn't matter if you need a doctor or access to a hospital and you got to drive 2 hours to get there. That's just not right. And we need leadership that's not just going to talk the talk, but willing to walk the walk. And I will be a champion for rural Georgia.
Awesome. Like that sounds fantastic there. All right. Well, thank you very much. May 19th is coming up. We got a couple more weeks here.
Yep. Early voting started Monday, so the election,
it's time.
the
Yeah, it's
election
going.
was already
It's going.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta go. No, I'm just-
How many more stops across the state you have? All over the place.
I got 2 more today, but
Yeah.
I just get up and go.
Do you know where you are right now? We're in Peachtree Corners.
Yeah, I know I'm north.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful out here, but that's okay. I'm surrounded by friends. I love this podcast, man. This is cool.
Awesome.
We need to get to the election.
Hey, all you business folk, come to Georgia. I'm looking forward. We'll make it a great opportunity for you, great investment. Looking forward to putting all force and resources to contribute to enticing you to come to our great state.
Awesome.
All right, Michael, thank you very much.
Right.
And thanks for spending the time with us and wish you the best of luck on the 19th.
Thank you.
Cool.